Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Vala Afshar, host of DisrupTV, also the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. Thank you for watching DisrupTV. Please follow us on Twitter at DisrupTV Show, and you can use hashtag DisrupTV to send us questions of our guests, myself, and our co-host, Alan Lepofsky. Yes, Ray Wong will not be joining us today.
Boy, so I have the enviable task of replacing Ray. I will do my best. I had 3 or 4 cups of coffee, and I'll see if I can keep Ray's level up. So Vala, thank you very much for having me as your guest host here today. It's exciting. You know, you and I have known each other for several years now. I think we first crossed paths on Twitter. Like, how perfectly fitting is that, back in your CMO days at Extreme Networks. And I still remember, you know, you were one of the first people I ever saw that did hiring, looking for new hires via social media. None of this, you know, send me a Word document and email type of thing. And I always, you know, thought that was very cutting edge of you. So to have you approaching your 1-year anniversary now at Salesforce as Chief Digital Evangelist is very fitting. I think you're perfectly suited for that role.
Well, I appreciate that, coming from one of the foremost experts in the world on future of work. And yeah, I do think that the paper CV is dying, and your personal brand is your digital footprint and your digital exhaust, those unintended consequences of things that you leave behind. Yeah. But I am super excited to introduce our first guest, Jennifer Pahlka. Jennifer is the founder and executive director of Code for America. Jennifer, Code for America, a national nonprofit that believes that government can work for the people, by the people, if we all help. Jennifer recently served as the U.S. Deputy Chief Technology Officer in the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, where she architected and helped start the United States Digital Service. Well, awesome. Jennifer is also known for her TED Talk, which is approaching 800,000 views, of coding a better government. And she's also the recipient of several awards, including MIT's Kevin Lynch Award, the Oxford Internet Institute's Internet and Society Award, and the National Democratic Institute's Democracy Award. Jennifer spent 8 years at CMP Media, where she ran the Game Developers Conference, Game Developers Magazine, and Independent Games Festival. You can follow Jennifer on Twitter at Pahlka, Pahlka. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you guys? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Oh, great. I'm having issues on my end, as long as you can hear. Thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. It was really hard for me to shorten your bio. You've done so much.
I was sitting there like, stop reading that. You don't need to tell me about that.
No, it's so awesome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how much you knew about the government before you started Code for America, an amazing organization. Our audience would love to learn more about Code for America.
Yeah, thanks. It's great questions, because I really didn't know much about government at all when I started. Though my first job out of college, I worked at a child welfare agency. I didn't think of it as government, but now that I know how government works, I know what an incredibly government plays child welfare in this country, and how reconnected and competence and capacity is to, you know, the quality of our lives for all people, and really particularly for people who need extra help in some way. So it's been a real journey for me, understanding how important government is, and how important it is for people in our industry, in our community, to get involved to make it work better.
Well, Jen, so this is Alan. You know, pleasure to have you on today. Thank you very much. It's so interesting hearing you talk about that you have to get that community of people involved. That's kind of what's, you know, the key to all this. Well, here we are on Disrupt TV. So tell me, like, what does it mean to disrupt government? This is a huge topic.
Yeah, well, you know, it's somewhat related to the notions of disrupting industries that we all, you know, can see in the society that we live in today. But I think it's different for government. There are practices that we consider pretty normal in the tech industry One of those is just that we start with users and we understand what users need, because our products don't get adoption if they're not meeting a real user need. And when we talk about disruption, we really mean bringing some practices that have made our environment that we live in, our society, our culture, far more convenient, far easier to navigate than it was 10 years ago because of great technology, and applying them in a government context in a way that doesn't destroy government. In fact, it doesn't destroy industries. It just changes how we do this thing that we're supposed to do all together called government, and make it work for people. We have this saying, government for the people, by the people, of the people, and yet so much of government over the past couple of decades has sort of accumulated a bunch of rules and a bunch of that in our parlance are about meeting government needs. All that about, it's not anybody with bad intentions. It's just sort of what's happened, and removing some of the cruft that makes government work, to meet compliance needs, meet regulation, et cetera, instead of really focusing on helping the people that we're supposed to help. That's really what we mean by disrupting government. If it were an industry, it's a very large industry. We work on safety net, the government services that help people at a vulnerable moment in their lives, like food stamps, where we have a really big footprint. And a lot of people think that you help vulnerable people in society through charity, which is great. We spend about $42 billion a year on charity for those folks. But we spend almost $500 billion, $470 billion on those same services through government. So our focus is making that $470 billion get, since it's taxpayer dollars that we decided should go to that purpose.
I work out for Salesforce, and when we talk to chief information, chief marketing, or chief digital officers, and how we live in the age of the customer, one would argue perhaps 10 years ago, when everybody started to carry a computer in their pocket, and we're projecting in 4 years, 80% of humanity, 6 billion people will have smartphones. Half of them will be active on multiple social networks. Almost 90% of the time we're on our mobile computer, we're using apps. So, the cloud revolution, mobile, social, consumerized businesses, where the rising expectation of employees was to use the great tools they have at home, at work. And as I work with CIOs that are trying to develop smart cities, connected cities, we see the rising expectations of the citizen in terms of improving their quality of life and the connectedness to the community, the wisdom of the crowd. When government works for the people, by the people, and does it well, what does that look like in your view?
Yeah, it's a great question. Basically, again, I would go back to the taxpayer dollars are spent in the way that we want. But I think your point about the expectations of the public now, driven by these great platforms, is a really valid one. The beauty of it is that same mechanism that raises our expectations and makes things more convenient for us as users of government is also the thing that makes the taxpayer dollar burden lower. These things are cheaper to administer when we do them right, when we use modern technology, but more importantly, modern practices for developing systems and simplify things. The Uber is, an example people use a lot. It is not at all a simple system. It's certainly very complicated in many ways, but the user interface is incredibly simple, and you really just tap and you get a car. Okay, so it's not always that simple. And I'm a Lyft user, not an Uber user. imagine what that would look like if it was developed with a sort of compliance framework in mind. It would be a form that you would fill out that would ask you a bunch of questions, that didn't know who you were, that didn't connect to your identity, that you had to file 2 days in advance, and then, you know, hope that somebody called you at that time. You know, about the ways in which we interact with government, and say, if it were as easy as these platforms, who benefits? Well, we benefit as users, and we benefit as taxpayers. And there are a million reasons why that's hard to do, but at the end of the day, it is absolutely possible to do. But it's not possible to do if we just say, other thing out there that someone else is responsible for, and I should complain, and I should make, you know, I should insist that we get better service. We should insist that we have better apps. We should insist that it's easier to file our taxes, or whatever. That's just, you can do that about consumer services, about government. That's our job as citizens, is to say, this isn't perfect, and it's my job to help. How can I help? What can I do? And that could mean working in government. It could mean going to a city council meeting. It could be joining a volunteer group. We have 50,000 people around the country who go to volunteer groups that help their local governments every week. This is the way we change things, is by owning it and saying, I'm part of the solution.
Terrific advice. Alan, you're on mute.
That would help. Just trying to reduce that background noise. Sorry. See, Ray, I have a lot to live up to. My apologies. There you go. Guest host mistake. So, Jen, I was starting to say, you know, you mentioned several different use cases, especially in the consumer world, the citizens wanting to do things around food, wanting to do things around taxes, you know, a lot of different examples. I'm curious, how reusable are the solutions you work on, and repeatable, not just reusable, but repeatable? Or is it sort of an uphill challenge each time you begin? Is everything sort of a one-to-one, or, you know, how does that work?
Yeah, so when we started this organization, my assumption was that you'd build it for one city and it would spread to other cities, because they do all really perform essentially the same functions. There's really, you know, great variety from cities around the country. They have different focuses. They have different things that are important. They straddle enormously different sizes. So, you know, there's 30,000 municipalities in the country, and only a handful of them are the New York Cities and the Bostons and the San Franciscos that do work at it in an amazing volume. So they have very, very different needs, from smaller cities to larger cities. So much of the work gets done at counties. But that assumption that stuff would spread very easily was part of my education. It hasn't spread as easily as we'd hoped. Where it has spread, actually, are projects that Code for America started that have spun out as businesses. And we have some great entrepreneurs who now take these and figure out actually how to get them in dozens and maybe hundreds of cities. We do everything open source, so it's, you know, we had hoped that things would spread through open source adoption, and that's true to a significant extent, but it's not a solution to the problem. I think cloud-hosted services that can where someone can be responsible on a commercial basis for integrating with the backends that cities have spreads much more quickly. We are actually focused now at Code for America in some of our internal projects, moving them past the experimental stage, past sort of showing what's possible, serving millions and millions of people through government programs that actually work in every state and every county in the country. That's one of the reasons we chose food stamps, is that it's the same program everywhere. It is administered a little bit differently everywhere, and that's part of the challenge and the opportunity of the government market. There's a fair amount of customization that goes into pretty much anything, but once you get good at it, you really can get to scale. One of the ways that you see this in play is just the enormous investment that's now happening in GovTech companies that was almost non-existent 5 years ago. Ron Buganim, who is a close collaborator of ours and a mentor at Code for America in its first 2 years, runs something called the GovTech Fund. It's a $25 million fund. with some great investors and great companies now. There are several other funds that have launched. Ekistic out of Chicago. This is a space where we're realizing, the venture community is realizing, despite some of the challenges in spread, there is an enormous opportunity here, not just to do good and make our cities work better, but also to build very profitable businesses.
Sure, sure. Well, Code for America helps government work for the people that need it most, focusing on issues regarding helping families get food assistance in California, to reducing incarcerations and modernizing workforce systems. Right now, what are some of the projects that are top of mind for you, and why?
Well, I talked a little bit about our work on food stamps, and that is certainly a big push for us right now. But what's top of mind for me today is our work to help people clear their record in California. And the reason it's top of mind is that our governor just signed a bill extending the time frame in which people can take advantage of this. So a little bit of background. There's a couple million people in California who had the unfortunate past experience of getting a felony on their records. These are nonviolent felonies. They tend to be for some sort of drug issue. They're often many, many years old, and they're the kind of thing that people tend not to be proud of. But the people of California have said, hey, let's not make this mistake in someone's past in persistent poverty. When you have to check that felony box when you go to apply for a job, it pretty much means you don't get a job. And that's not how we want to help people rise up and move on to great opportunities. So California's passed something called Prop 47 to allow people to reduce certain of those felonies to misdemeanors or clear them from their record entirely. But the process that was designed, or maybe it's fair to say not very well designed or not designed at all, but sort of emerged for people to take advantage of this, takes many, many months, tons of persistence, tons of ability to navigate complicated forms that don't make much sense to the average person. And this means that only about 7% of people who are eligible to expunge their records have even started the process. And we decided to step in and use the same sort of mechanism that we've used on food stamps, which is to make it much, much simpler for people, much clearer, and then help them through the process and help government understand what they're doing wrong to keep people away. And we are helping people in 3 California counties now and hope to extend it to more. And I'm just so glad that we're getting extra time to do this, because the state legislature and the governor have recognized how important it is to not just pass laws, but for us to actually implement those laws.
Is there a hashtag? Is there a hashtag or something that we can follow on Twitter or other social networks to promote your cause?
We'll certainly follow Code for America on Twitter, and we talk about some of our news there. If you know anybody who you think might benefit from clearing your record, please go to cleanmyrecord.org. And then if you know anybody you think might be eligible for food stamps but isn't getting it, that's getcalfresh.org.
Terrific. Alan, go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say that's great. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for providing, today's overview. We all often have, executives on the show that talk about what they're doing inside their organization, and while our audience can learn from that, they often can't then go participate. So this is really interesting. I love that, we get to speak with you today with our audience all has a call to action. So everyone, please visit, whether it's codeforamerica.org. I'm in Canada, so I'm going to ask you, when Code for Canada comes in, but we can have a discussion about that later, and how we clear our criminal records here in Canada for some of those things. But thank you very much, and folks that are following, you mentioned on Twitter, Code for America. You personally are Pahlka on Twitter, right? Which I love, at PAHLKADOT for those in our audience that want to follow along. And again, thank you very much for providing the info today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you as well. Talk to you. Bye-bye. That was amazing. It's such important initiatives, and to start Code for America, to scale to 50,000, and not knowing much about government certainly demonstrates the passion to bring communities closer to each other and solving really meaningful issues.
Well, I think, yeah, a very key word you said there is scale. It's just incredible to think about, gov versus business. It's always an interesting industry, or, it impacts the lives of real people, which is just a wonderful trait. Absolutely.
Well, another guest with wonderful traits is our next guest, and I'm not just
saying background is the woman you just had on the show, but
no, but you reach quite a large audience, Ron. So
yeah,
my credentials just don't even come close to hers. I'm sorry.
We have a tendency of positioning Ron after individuals who are literally.
Yeah. I feel woefully inadequate. I have to talk.
You're extraordinary, but you do have big shoes to fill after Jennifer. Ron, enterprise reporter for TechCrunch. He's been a freelance technology journalist since 1998. A frequent guest, one of our favorites on DisrupTV, and I'm not just saying that because I'm going to be seeing Ron in person next week in San Francisco. In addition, Ron is contributing editor to eContent magazine, where he writes media redux columns. He's helped launch and still runs a blog,
Social Media News.
Socialmedianews.com. And welcome to DisrupTV, Ron.
Thanks. It's great to be here, as always.
Hi,
so what's on your mind? Oh yeah, go ahead, Alan, please.
No, I was just going to welcome you as well, Ron. It's nice to have a friend on the show. Again, as someone who attends lots of conferences, you're one of the friendly faces that I get to see at all these events.
Sure.
We are kind of in the heart of that conference season, are we not? This is sort of end of August through end of October is lots and lots of shows. You want to tell us what you've been up to and what's happening out there in the TechCrunch world?
Well, I mean, I didn't go to Ignite this week. My colleague Frederic Ladenois did go, but I did follow his coverage. And the big news coming out of Ignite, of course, was that they got Adobe as a customer. And one of the things I find interesting about these kinds of big cloud infrastructure player announcements is they always tend to shout them from the rooftops, right? We've got a big win, and the reason for that partly is because, everybody's chasing AWS, right? AWS has maybe a third of the market. Even Microsoft as well as they're doing is still only around 10% of the market, and Google is probably half of that. So if you put Google and Microsoft together, you have less than half of what AWS has. So when Microsoft or Google get wins, they have to amplify them, and they've been doing that. So the Adobe win was certainly a good win for them. Whether it actually is at the expense of AWS or whether it's in addition to AWS isn't clear, but it was a big announcement for them from that show this week. And then, of course, they also went into their deeper into their hybrid strategy. And that seems to be the way that Microsoft and many of the traditional players are positioning themselves in this cloud market, that AWS is the pure cloud player, and that they are the bridge between the old traditional world, and they being the competitors, are the bridge between the old traditional world and the new cloud world, and that with the idea that nobody's going to rip and replace here, although some people are actually. A food company just announced this week that they're going to go all in. I forget the name of the company, Hudson Foods maybe. They're a huge food conglomerate. But there was a Wall Street Journal story this week that this company plans to go, all of its cloud applications in the cloud by mid-2018. I mean, we're in the end of 2016, so that's pretty amazing. So, but Microsoft's position and Oracle's position and just about every other, Dell and EMC, why they went together, is to try and capture this huge market that they see, bridging the gap between the old traditional data center and the newer cloud applications.
Okay. So, you know, Ron, you've mentioned lots of large organizations, Dell, EMC, Microsoft, there's Salesforce in the mix, and Oracle. Each week, you know, especially as someone like you who's, you know, fully invested in this news, there's another partnership or another acquisition. What are your thoughts around the industry as a whole these days? The silos of 3, 5, 10 years ago seem to be going away. There's, you know, always a new partnership, always a new acquisition. Why are all these big companies better friends today than they were a little while ago?
Well, it's interesting, you know, they are and they aren't, because, you know, I think, you know, Satya Nadella was at Dreamforce last year, and he talked about how it's incumbent upon large platforms to be able to work together because customers are demanding it, right? And that's clearly happening. But then, you know, you also have two companies, you know, not just sales, not to just position it as Salesforce and Microsoft, because it's everybody and everybody, but everybody is trying to still beat everybody. But at the same time, the cloud by its nature, I think, is a lot more intertwined. We're not looking at the kinds of you know, proprietary, humongous applications that we saw 5 and 10 years ago, where, you know, using Oracle as an example, and I'm just using Oracle as an example, not to pick on them in any way, but they you know, they and Microsoft and all of them, they would go into a company and they would try to sell the whole stack. And of course you can't blame them. That was a reasonable strategy for them. But the downside of that approach, the upside was it was easy for IT. They got everything from one vendor. They had one throat to throttle. They had, you know, one set of, you know, things to really understand well, and that worked. But it didn't work well for the users, and it didn't work well when it came to making things work together. So anything inside the company that needed to interact with that huge stack wasn't easy. It wasn't in the huge stack's best interest to make it easy, right? And I think one of the things that the cloud by its nature is doing is changing that whole dynamic. It's making it really, really easy. Everything is open. You know, there's open APIs on every one of these platforms. And, you know, any one of the vendors that you talk to, I mean, obviously, you know, the you know, Salesforce and Workday and Box and, you know, ServiceNow, and, you know, you just go down the line. All of these companies have been built from the ground up as cloud companies. So they're going to be more naturally aligned with that kind of an approach. But, you know, even companies like, you know, that came later, you know, to the cloud game, Microsoft and Oracle and, you know, all of them. I could make a big long list here. They all are now talking in those same terms. Like, we have to be open. We have to link easily to other enterprise applications. We have to be able to work together. And, you know, it really came down to, you know, this kind of consumerization of IT that started maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. People started being able to go out into the world, get really good applications, and they're like, well, I'm using these really great applications on my laptop or on my cell phone, and now I can't use them at work. I'm using this big, clunky, awful piece of software at work. Why can't you make it work like this? And to make that happen and to make that transition, people had to start working together more, and I think that's really why you're starting to see that.
Sure. You mentioned Workday. A few weeks ago, we had Anil Bhusri, CEO of Workday, on DisrupTV, and Anil talked about pure cloud play versus what he referred to cloudish companies, some of the legacy vendors that are now embracing or have recently embraced cloud. And what he talked about the use of machine learning and data science at Workday, where the application, the platform can identify employees that are at risk of leaving the company. The platform, Workday platform, can guide career path and guide working with CHROs to better understand digital personality of employees. And what he said was that, you know, you hire data scientists to work on these new algorithms, machine learning, deep learning, and smart data discovery and data sciences discipline. And for them to keep up with innovation velocity, the direction and speed of innovation, if you don't have a uniform cloud and you have on-premise highly customizable solutions, it's nearly impossible to keep pace with innovation, especially with new emerging technologies. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think that ultimately that, for companies to be able to take advantage of advanced analytics, those that embrace the cloud have a distinct advantage?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on, a lot of factors that I may not understand. The data science is a highly complex study, and I'm certainly not an expert on that. But from what I've seen and what I've observed, obviously being not tied to these legacy kinds of applications makes you more nimble and more agile and more able to take advantage of whatever new technology comes down the road. Now, it's not impossible to be able to start to link some of those technologies back to the legacy applications. But I mean, some of them, you go inside old insurance companies. I'm sure you guys have seen this. You got old COBOL programs running from the 60s still. You got databases from the 70s. These things are really old technology. And, how do you begin to take advantage of all the new technology that's out there? You talked about machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I know your company is making a big push towards that. But, everybody is. And it's just become in some ways it's a buzzword, but in some ways it's also, it's a fact. It's like machine learning and artificial intelligence are going to have a huge impact on all of technology as we move forward. And we're going to get better and better at it. And it's going to become, instead of just being this kind of, stuff for data scientists, which we were just talking about. You and I aren't data scientists. Alan's not a data scientist as far as I know.
Alan, maybe.
It's a part-time job.
You may play one on TV.
Exactly.
But how are these companies going to put this within reach of the average user and make it relevant to their jobs? I wrote actually a piece a few months ago now. Time is passing, but I read an article in the Boston Globe about baseball. It was a baseball article, and Tony Clark, who's the head of the MLBPA, the Players Association, was talking about the amount of data that is available to baseball players today. And he said, basically, oh, there's my phone. I knew that was going to happen. Now my
That's
phone.
the MLB calling. It's the MLB calling.
Start talking now. But to continue the story, even with the phone going in the background, this is live TV, folks. Is that he said they give us so much information, but what good does it do me to know that this guy is most likely to throw this on this day in daylight, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? He said that's too much detail for me to understand. He said what I need when I go up to the plate to hit, or if I'm on the mound as a pitcher, I need a plan. And I need a very compact plan that I can go into the batter's box with and understand how I'm going to hit. And that's how the data can help. And I took that statement, I applied it to the world at large. Like, what about workers? Workers need a plan too. And you can throw a world of data at them, but if you don't give them the data that they need to do their jobs and shut out the noise, and there's so much noise in all this data, minute details about everything, but those minute details are not necessarily going to help you to do your job. So the question is, how do we get this kind of technology, whether it's, your question was about, can it apply to legacy technology, whether it's that legacy technology or whether it's, the cloud technology, that either way, how do we use those kinds of technologies to make people's work lives work more efficiently and do things that the machine can do better, to augment the human. And I think that's what it's all going to come down to, regardless of whether it's legacy or whether it's cloud. It's like, how do we use artificial intelligence, machine learning? They seem to be interchangeable, and I know they're not. But how do we how do we use those technologies to augment what we do as humans and use the smarts of the machine, the things that we can't possibly think that quickly, right? That's not the way human brains work. We are only able to keep that little bit of information that Tony Clark talked about when we go in the batter's box, whether it's speaking in a situation like this or doing our jobs at our computers, whatever it is, the computer can help us because the computer is so much faster than us. But then we can bring our creativity and our intelligence and our skills to bear upon that with the computer as a partner. And I think that if we can get to that point where we're using technology in that way, and I think we're still a ways from that. We're trying to get there. But if we do get to that point, then we're going to be using computers. And it's, people talk about replacing jobs, and I think it will replace some mundane jobs. It'll replace jobs that a lot of people don't want to do anyway, but I don't think it will replace humans, and if it does, it's like a long way away from that ever happening. And,
Sure.
Certainly not in our lifetimes and
Sure.
probably not in our children's lifetimes. So it's really about augmenting human intelligence, not replacing humans in whatever we do.
Right. My colleague Peter Schwartz wrote a piece targeting sales professionals, and in the post he said salespeople don't have to worry about being replaced by robots. They have to be worried about being replaced by other salespeople who use augmented intelligence. So it's I think it was wise advice. Where are you going to spend the next couple of weeks? October, November, Ron. Where are you going to be?
Next week I'm at Dreamforce. So I'll be back in San Francisco for that. That's obviously a huge conference. It takes over the city. It's just unbelievable. I've never been to anything like it, I can say that. Then after that, I'm going to try and make it to Constellation's thing, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to, because in the first week of November, I'm going to Web Summit in Lisbon. So I'm going to moderate a couple of panels there, enterprise panels on their enterprise stage. So that's what's next for me in my travel life.
All right.
That's right.
Well, Ron, you've covered a lot of territory here. We really appreciate it. You talked about cloud and the battle that's going on with the enterprise giants and even some of the small guys that are involved there. Hybrid is not a thing of the past. It's actually very much our present. Lots of companies still sort of on that mixed environment. And then we, brought that into the world of AI, very, very near and dear to my research area. So I appreciate, all of the things you talked about. I think you echoed a lot of my research reports. So I appreciate that. And as Vala said, I think we're going to be seeing you at a few upcoming events. We'll probably touch next week at Salesforce's Dreamforce event. If the two of us can see each other in the 170,000 people, that would be great.
Yeah, I would like that.
We'll do what we can. And as always, everybody looks forward to reading your articles. Do you want to tell people where to make sure to go to see your latest and greatest? And then we'll say thank you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, which is at Ron_Miller. So, and I usually send share my articles through that channel. And, you can go on TechCrunch and, you can find me on there for sure, on TechCrunch.com.
Awesome.
All right.
Jennifer was terrific, and you crushed it, Ron. So thank you so much. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you, Ron. Safe travels.
All right. Bye-bye.
So now you see, Alan, why Fridays afternoons are our favorite time of the week for Ray and I. So many people come on DisrupTV and drop science on us. And gives us plenty to think about as we go through the weekend and as we blog. So let's tell us. By the way, you've been a fabulous co-host. I'm gonna have to let Ray know he's got to step up his game. No, I'm kidding.
No problem.
Yeah,
I haven't been as interactive as I wanted. I've been polite. I've sat here quietly, which for those of you out there that know me, this is the longest I've ever sat quiet. So
now this is your time. Tell us about your research. Tell us about areas that you're focusing. You know, we've as you mentioned, conference season is absolutely white hot. It started in August and it's going to go throughout October. And so tell us about yourself, please.
Sure. So for those of you that are watching, thank you very much. As Vala said, you know, we are in the heart of conference season. So over the last few weeks, you know, all of the major software vendors, VMworld took place, BoxWorks, there was Oracle Open World, Microsoft Ignite. Next week is Salesforce Dreamforce. After that, we have IBM World of Watson, and following that, you know, IBM Constellation's own event, Connected Enterprise. Sorry, they all blur together. And for me, it's a really, really interesting time. Now, I focus on sort of the collaboration aspects of what people are doing. So the end user side, there's huge elements that are going on in the infrastructure side, what's taking place in cloud, what's taking place in security, what's taking place in blockchain, IoT, all of these things. My focus is how do all of these tools affect the end user? So, you know, we've all lived and complained about and are still living in, you know, an email-centric world. We've been promised collaboration tools and social tools. We've been promised customer experience and employee experience. Well, where do we stand with all of these things is sort of what I'm really looking at. And over the last about 2 years, and sort of culminating in every event right now, as Ron, you know, our previous guest mentioned, everybody wants to talk about artificial intelligence. And so for me, what I try to do is bring that to the level of the end user. Is it artificial intelligence? Is it machine learning? Is it deep learning? Is it neural nets? Cognitive? Nobody cares about that as a regular everyday employee. What employees care about is getting their job done more efficiently, more effectively, more accurately, you know, all of those things. And that's where I think that this AI-assisted world is going to impact the biggest change we've seen in employee-facing software in decades. And I know that sounds so buzzword compliant, but if you think about it, what have we done over the last decade or two? We've moved to the cloud. Great, wonderful. Stuff is not stored on our machines. It's easily accessible from anywhere. But we haven't changed the way we work. We use the same tools. The data is just stored elsewhere. We have mobile devices. It's fantastic. Anytime, anywhere access, cameras, GPS built into these things. So it's enhanced the way we work. But this new era of AI-assisted software, and that's what I'm actually calling it, I'm calling it assisted collaboration, has the potential to really change the way we do our jobs. Whether you're in sales, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in finance, whether you're an IT administrator that has to do threat detection on your network, you know, this is the first set of tools that are really going to hopefully surface information to you in brand new ways, discover patterns, make suggestions, eventually one day actually take actions for you. And, you know, Vala, to me, that's exciting. Like this isn't just like, hey, here's a new tool. For the most part, this is the same tools we use today, but they're going to be better versions of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I think about, and this is, again, I'll go back to what Anil said when we asked him about the design methodology at Workday. And he said, we look at consumer apps, successful consumer apps, and we try to bring that design philosophy into how we design functionality in our platform. And you know, the fact that Netflix knows which episode in a series is the one that hooked you for that series, the fact that you have, you know, virtual assistants or an Alexa that went from 35 commands last year to, I don't know, nearly 2,000 commands now. And so there is element of increasing contextual intelligence and use of the technologies and apps, whether you're in customer service, whether you're in sales or marketing. I think about, as you mentioned, I came from the B2B space, you know, where you had sometimes large number of personas that made up the buying decision team. You know, 6, 7, 8, sometimes depending on the size of the deal, it could be 10 different personas. And as a marketeer, you're trying to figure out what type of content you should deliver to the CFO who may be ROI driven, or the CIO who's trying to understand complexity for installation and adoption of features. Or it could be the chief revenue officer who's trying to link the investment thesis in IT or technology to business outcomes like growing revenue or managing EBITDA, and so on and so forth. So how do you, and you talk about the importance of the marketing and then the customer journey in marketing. You think about it, what happens when you have 10 personas on a single account, each have a different buying process map, and you as a vendor needs to be able to, in almost real time, deliver insight across multiple channels to the right audience and the right time. Automation and assisted intelligence is critically important for you to be able to do this, because to function with precision at scale, I don't see how companies can do it manually. It's just not possible.
Well,
so,
and I'm so with you on that idea of that it's not just automation, it's that scalability and the pattern finding across multiple sets. I think too often we talk about individual uses of AI. How is AI going to impact a salesperson, or how is AI going to impact financial, or how is AI going to impact, marketing? What gets really interesting to me is when these tools will be able to do things that were next to impossible to do manually. It's not that they could do them faster. It's not that they can, just help us with, going home earlier. It's what new things can we achieve. And an example scenario I like to walk people through that spans across multiple tools is something as simple as file sharing with a customer. The average employee uploads a file and they want to share it with someone. Okay, so how effective has that file been? Well, look, I can look at statistics about number of downloads and number of views. Not really great. Kind of lets me know which one's more popular. But what if I could then map that data to where that file was uploaded, say, into a webinar? That data exists. Now I'm mapping a file system with a web conferencing system. Well, in that web conferencing system, I know the attendee names, right? Which companies. So what if I could map it to my CRM system? And then not only know in my CRM system who was in a webinar and what file they were looking at, but what about if it went from prospect to customer stage? And if I could find out, like you said, which page of a presentation was looked at for the longest, all of a sudden I've combined customer data, webinar data, file sharing. I'm a marketing person. I created a deck. Was it effective? Did it lead to closing a sales deal? Those are very challenging things for people to do manually. I don't know too many people that export all of that data. Here are my file shares.
Right.
Where did the sales reps use them? How many webinars did they do, et cetera? And that's a basic example. Looking at things like pattern recognition in images for, service accounts. Let me upload a picture of something that broke. And instead of someone trying to describe it and looking it up in a product catalog, what if my customer support tool automatically knew what that product was and could reorder the part for me? There's just going to be some exciting changes, I think, in the way we work.
Absolutely. And those are great examples. You just painted a scenario where each piece of content can potentially turn into a campaign, a lead generation.
Yeah.
And how often do we share insights as that piece of content traverses from one system to another? And as someone who ran services for 10 years, even in the pre-purchase process where customers, now we would sell data center solutions where you had to use configurators to design the chassis with the right switch and router and Wi-Fi access point and so on and so forth. Many times we would iterate back and forth where the schematic of the proposed network would be attached to an email, and we would have to look at the schematic, try to identify the deltas defined by the partner or customer. Imagine a system, if Facebook has 98% facial recognition accuracy, with deep learning, you can look at the schematic, identify the delta, modify your CPQ system because it's well integrated into your CRM. You have a new code that's generated. You chat to or use social channels to inform the partner, the prospect customer, and your solutions engineer or the field engineer who has to potentially install the technology. All of that is massive amounts of productivity gains. Massive. If you could just detect the delta.
Even just accuracy. It's not, productivity. Like think, it's exciting. Extrapolate your story out to doctors, to HVAC engineers, to architects, to contractors building things. You mentioned these visual sort of worlds where there's so much potential for human error, where hopefully the machines will be able to really, dramatically change that. I know we're running short on time here. I think, we've made such an important point about AI to bring it down to the level of what does it mean to employees. Let's not talk about, on this show today anyway, the architecture and the APIs and speed and, how fast computers are and things like that. I hope that people today sort of leave with the idea of, the software I use is going to be different. Whether it's Oracle's adaptive intelligent applications, whether it's Salesforce applications powered by Einstein, whether it's Microsoft, powered with Bing and Cortana, IBM with, their Watson powered applications, Google with, their announcements yesterday around G Suite. All of the major vendors are working on this now, and I legitimately tell people this. I'm excited about collaboration software again. I'm excited about employee-facing tools and customer experience and employee experience. And we are just at the tip of the iceberg. I think we've got an exciting 1, 3, 5, 10 years to go on this.
Absolutely agree with you. For our audience who want to learn more about one of the world's top experts in terms of future of work, you can follow Alan on Twitter at Alan Lepo, ALANLEPO. Alan, where else can our audience go to find your blogs and your research?
Yeah, well, you can find all my research on constellationr.com. You can look in our analyst section and click on my name and find our research there. You can look at my personal website. A lot of information is mirrored there at alanlepofsky.com. You can see my name there at the bottom. And social media is certainly the best way to interact and ask me questions. I really enjoy dealing with people and helping people out. You mentioned this theme, future of work. Any way I can help impact the way vendors make software or the way customers use software, I'll feel good at the end of the day.
Awesome. What are you going to cover in terms of your keynote at Constellation event? What's the topic that you're developing? Or is that, it's a month? I know if it's me, I'm developing my slides on the flight to the event.
Well, I'll a quick overview of my next 3. I'm speaking at Salesforce Dreamforce next week with the Community Cloud team, talking about intelligence of Einstein in Community Cloud. I'm speaking at IBM World of Watson a week or so after that, talking about what IBM is doing about building collaborative intelligence into their collaborative applications, sort of the next generation of social networking and email and all of those things. And then at Constellation, we're going to wrap up my little tour here with sort of the third version of this talk that we've done. Over the last few years, we've been talking about how can software augment employees at work. And in this year, we're going to have yet another panel about sort of augmenting employee productivity, efficiency, and not replacing humans. This isn't about robots taking factory worker jobs. This is about knowledge workers having access to information that they never had access to before. And there's a lot of exciting stuff coming out about it, and happy to share it.
I look forward to joining you at Half Moon Bay at the Constellation Summit. And thank you so much for being an amazing host. I'm starting to feel like I need to up my game. So you were terrific, and we hope to have you again on DisrupTV. I think we found our co-host here. So
if I can give Ray a break from time to time, I'm happy to help. Thank you for watching.
Absolutely. And let our audience know who's going to be here next week. So next week we're at Dreamforce, and all of us are going to be consumed with this intimate 171,000 event that's going on. So we will not have DisrupTV scheduled for next week. Also, at the end of October, we're going to be at the Constellation event, and we might do impromptu DisrupTV periscopes like we did at some of the other conferences. Obviously, we have extraordinary thought leaders at both conferences. On October 14th, we have Kari Anderson who's the CEO of Say It Better Center founder and Emmy Award winner. Kari Anderson will be joining us. We have Otto Burks, Chief Technology Officer at CA Technologies. And we look forward to having you join us on DisrupTV in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.